Welcome to the Ultimate Gamer Podcast, a show that features conversations with the trailblazers, thought leaders, decision makers, and investors who are defining the gaming and esports space. On the Ultimate Gamer Podcast, we take a journey into this dynamic industry and start to decode and reveal who and what's making news. It's about connecting, and it's about sharing the stories and vision of the people who make gaming and esports a global phenomenon. And now, please welcome your host, student of the game and connector to the esports community, Tommy Knapp.
What's up, everyone? I'm Tommy Knapp, and this is an all-new episode of the Level Up Podcast presented by The Ultimate Gamer. On today's show, I have a conversation with Ashley Chalk, Vice President of Partnerships at Complexity Gaming, one of the top competitive esports orgs on the planet. Prior to that, she worked at Feld Entertainment, handling global partnerships for properties such as Disney on Ice, Monster Jam, and Marvel Universe Live. Her 17-year sales and marketing background also included diverse and dynamic roles at Merlin Entertainment, the Daytona Speedway, and Walt Disney World. After some initial chit-chat about the culture, growth, and development of Dallas, Ashley broke down her admiration of Walt Disney's Traditions program. She also talked about the vast experience she earned from her minor league baseball stint with the West Michigan Whitecaps, and then raced through her years in auto sports. I felt like we had taken a trip around the globe before we really sank our teeth into her new role at Complexity Gaming and what it means to work under the star of the Dallas Cowboys. She took us on a journey through the GameStop Performance Center and at the end helped us find our way through the smoke. Please listen now for Ashley Chalk. From Dallas to Daytona, because you started a lot of your career, if I'm wrong, let me know, but a beginning of your career was in Daytona and maybe working for the Daytona Speedway.
Yep.
So what's the difference between a Dallas and a Daytona?
Well, I will say I've been fortunate that my dad was an executive with General Motors, and out of his 37-year career, 27 of those years he actually spent internationally. So a part of that, I got to live in Spain. And then when I was in college, my parents were in Venezuela and Argentina. So traveling and being exposed to different cultures and moving around at such a young age, I tell people I know for a fact I was being set up for my career, and knowing that no matter what it took or new circumstance or from a geographical standpoint, that I would figure it out. If I was able to figure it out as a kid, I was going to figure it out as an adult. So
stay there for a second, though, because I was in the travel industry for 10 years, 15 years. And I always say that travel to me is, if not the best education, one of the best educations, right? Because you just learn through osmosis. You're around different cultures, different people, different languages. And so, especially in esports, it's very global. It helps you become like a global citizen, right? So you lived in Spain. I mean, I love Barcelona. I've never been to Madrid, actually, but I've been to Sevilla, I've been all around. Where did you live in Spain? And then just talk a little bit about your travels, because I think it is important to tell us that, because that's part of who you are. And like you said, that helps you make your decisions and know that you could just get yourself around in the world.
Yeah, no, it 100% contributes to, who I am as an individual and having that foundation. So we actually lived in a town called El Puerto de Santa Maria, which was 2 hours south of Sevilla. So right at the tip. So we were in the province of Andalusia, there in the southern part of Spain. Just absolutely gorgeous.
So pretty down there.
The claim to fame to our town was I went to the local school there. So I was one of two Americans there. And it was full-blown Spanish private school there. And the other girl that I went to school with, the other American, funny enough, her dad worked for Ford.
Okay.
From that standpoint. So it was nice to have like a little compadre, in there that had already been around for a couple of years. Because at that time I wasn't fluent. So I was, this, redheaded American coming in, to this dynamic. But our claim to fame in that town was the castle, funny enough, where my mom would pick me up from school every day. we would kick the soccer ball around, was the castle that Christopher Columbus went and asked Queen Elizabeth for the money for the Nina the Pinta de Santa Maria.
Yeah,
so,
man, that's crazy.
Yeah, right. So
Yeah.
it's kind of cool. And, at the time, even at that age, I honestly, it was yesterday because it was expensive. I have a very photographic memory from that. And I think it has a lot to do with what I got exposed to so early and everything that I was able to see. But again, what I loved about my parents is, they embraced the fact that we were there. So we didn't just stay within our, little community. We'd get in the car and drive to Portugal. We'd take the hovercraft, from Gibraltar and go over to Morocco.
Yeah.
Dad would be like, all right, cool, let's get in the car. And we'd take off and drive up through France and Switzerland and Italy, and just have these moments together as a family and be exposed to culture and to art and, countless museums. I think sometimes my dad would have not gone to one more museum, but my mom and I were always advocating for that. But
how old were you at this time? Was this high school?
So no, I was 8. So
okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So these were pretty formative years. So 8, and then moved back, turning into a teenager, back to the States, which was, you want to talk about a shock. Going from Dallas to Daytona was absolutely nothing. Going from Spain to El Paso, as turning a 13, 14-year-old and getting into junior high. Now that was quite the shock.
Wow.
That was quite the transition. And it was a challenge. It was a challenge all around from that standpoint. But thankfully, again, I was surrounded by some awesome people there that are still friends of mine to this day that I went to school there with.
So cool.
Yeah.
So cool. Okay. So yeah, thank you for talking about that. So,
yeah.
So now you're in Daytona.
Yes. So now I'm in Daytona, and I know a lot of people say, hey, Ashley, you started your career with International Speedway Corporation. And quite frankly, I tell them, no, actually, I didn't. My career started when I accepted the internship with Walt Disney World Company. And that internship that I did with Disney, it was incredible. It really just, there was all these different aspects. Yes, I worked at Space Mountain. But I was also cross-trained, and here's the joke within my family, especially with my older sister. I was cross-trained also at the attraction in Tomorrowland at the Indy Speedway car attraction. Remember the cars that were on the rails?
Yeah.
So that internship really, from a guest experience, just all the different dynamics of dealing with parents that are quite on edge to make sure that they're getting every last penny worth of that Disney vacation with their kids. I have stories for days from what I experienced there, but
and you talk about, I graduated. Talk about an education. Walt Disney World. There's really not, like you said, with guest experience, there's not much better of an education, that real world education, than you can get than that. And much after our conversation today, I'll have to introduce you to my wife, because she's right now jonesing to go back to Disney. She's going crazy right now because she hasn't been in 3 months. And so she's freaking out. So she's got to get back, but she absolutely loves it. Every time we drive through the arch, when you go on property, yep, she starts crying.
Listen, Disney definitely has been a part of our family too, because being internationally based, and I have an older sister. So when we were in Spain, she was actually in college. And then as we went through, and then when I was in school and my parents were in South America, we were definitely part of the Disney Vacation Club. So that was kind of like our home base, right, for us. So the mouse has been within my world and continues to show itself through my career too, which is an antic. But that Disney internship was incredible. I often refer to that internship because of the 2 weeks of onboarding that Disney does with their interns, but also for any of their employees, no matter where you fall in line within that company. And it's called Traditions, is the name of their onboarding. And it really just hones in on, Disney leadership, just everything that you really need to encompass to come into, their world and to be properly prepared. So their onboarding is first class, and any company and corporation, I don't care how big or small you are, need to pay attention to how they do that and take the time instead of just throwing someone, right into the mix of something. So,
right.
From Disney, and then another piece too, that was absolutely a pivotal moment for my career so I could continue to have success and knowing what it takes, was my internship with minor league baseball. one of the biggest things I preach to, you know, the younger ones that are wanting to get in the world of sports and live entertainment, I'm a massive advocate of doing an internship for minor league baseball. So even though my focus was sales, ticket sales, season tickets, suite sales, I was pulling tarp. I was understanding concessions. I was understanding the dynamics behind promotion. I was the mascot couple, crashed the raffle, and that's totally fine, you know. But what it did was, again, remind myself, even to this day, you know, if there's a box on the ground, go pick it up. You're never too good for that. You have to understand all of the different dynamics that go into something coming to life, whether it's a baseball game or whatever that is. So very thankful for those guys. I still have some mentors from that organization that, you know, I lean on from that standpoint. And then
where was that? What club was that?
It was West Michigan Whitecaps, so based in Grand Rapids. So they're a Detroit Tigers affiliate. Okay,
yeah, and I agree 100% with you. It's a great point because I've worked in minor league soccer, if you will. It was called the NASL. Same thing. It's such a great opportunity to see every facet of the business and really have to work in every facet of the business because there's only so many resources that a minor league team has on a personnel side. So that's a great experience and provides so much more for you moving forward. So cool. Yeah. So now you leave Michigan and then you go to Daytona?
Yes. So now it's International Speedway Corporation. So which is no longer its own entity, as you know, it's rolled up under the entire NASCAR umbrella. But I mean, I was fortunate, 24 years old, got to walk in as an account executive with Daytona International Speedway, you know, the Super Bowl of the NASCAR tracks. And right then started all on new business development and sales. So across that almost 7-year time frame with ISC at Daytona, really was honing in on, you know, cultivating new relationships, especially within our backyard of Central Florida, overseeing when it came to event time, all of our hospitality areas. Was really honored and privileged to be part of the development of the Daytona 500 Club, which is that beautiful Mecca building that sits on Gatorade Victory Lane. I don't know if it's still, I think Gatorade's still their partner. See, I'm brainwashed from the partners.
Just comes out.
But I was able to be part of the opening of that. And then during event time, overseeing that, you know, as well. And, you know, when people didn't have the right credentials, having to turn them away. I think one of the funniest moments, not funniest moments, because it was a little disheartening, but I had to turn away Miss Florida and her escorts at the time because she didn't have the right credentials. But I was like, I'm not getting in trouble for this. I had very clear, you know, really.
But I'm Miss Florida. I know you're Miss Florida, but you don't have the credentials. Yeah, that
great
conversation's
crown,
not easy.
But I'm sorry, you're not allowed in
Love
here.
Your crown.
So, but no, so that was just a wonderful, wonderful foundation again with, you know, cranking sales out, really understanding the hospitality aspects, understanding where and being part of new revenue generating opportunities for the track, how that comes to life while assisting, you know, our account management team that would work on like the Budweiser account, et cetera. Because at the time, Anheuser-Busch was a massive partner there at Daytona National Speedway. Our president at the time, Robin Bragg, who was amazing, and I was so thankful to work for him. He had come from AB from that, so we had great experience. So had that opportunity there, and at the time we had an incredibly dynamic female in our vice president role of the track by the name of Gillian Zucker. And Gillian became the first female president of a track in ISC out in California. So she went out there and started her time frame of being the president. At the time, it was California Speedway, and she got a naming rights deal in place with Auto Club of Southern California. So it became the Auto Club Speedway. And I was given an opportunity to go work for her on her team out there in California. So brought me out there, launched the first group sales experience within our ISC tracks, and it was a lot of tests, if you will, a lot of failures, but a lot of wins of how we started to navigate that space from that standpoint, but also very much involved in bringing on new partners, as well as creating new hospitality experiences to drive new partnership sales. So one of them being Budweiser, bringing Budweiser in there and creating an experience not only for fans within our fan zone area, but then a secondary ticket opportunity for you to go into the Budweiser party zone. Sure. To all those great things, the basics of the driver appearance and the fun time, but it was just great. So Fritz Maskery, Gillian Zucker, Dave Allen, those guys out there were just absolutely amazing to me for my time there, finishing off with ISC.
When you're working at one of the tracks, are you really focused year round on that one big event, or are there smaller events that are happening throughout the year? Because here you are coming from Disney, coming from the minor league baseball system, where basically every day is an event, right? I mean, it might be a small event, especially in the minor league baseball sense, but every single day you have to prepare for a new event. With these big racetracks, everybody thinks like the Daytona 500 is like one big weekend. Mm-hmm. But what happens throughout the course of the year? And if you're selling sponsorship, are you just selling to that one event, or is it really the course of events throughout the year that lead up to the big event?
It's a great question, because there's definitely a perception of that. And I think it also plays into, your mindset of how you continue to stay as best as you can on top of your A game, throughout the year when there are these lulls. For Daytona, a lot of people don't realize, we had track activities starting the second week of January with tire testing. So all the teams would be in there, on track testing. And then it would lead into the Rolex 24. Completely different series that races at the end of January. And then you lead into Speed Weeks, which are all of these other races that lead up to the Super Bowl of the Daytona 500. So you have all of that. And let's just say those first 2 months, of the year, during those years I was there, it was one big blur. You basically lived at the track, but, I loved it. You thrived off of those moments. A lot of nights sleeping in the infield because it was better to just get those couple hours of sleep versus going home, etc.
Really? So do they have tents out there?
No, gosh, they had campers, like legit, campers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, you're not in a sleeping bag under the stars. Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. So, and then as Speed Weeks concluded, just a short few weeks after that, Bike Week commences. So now we have Bike Week that comes into Daytona. And obviously with the facility of Daytona, we would create events there. We didn't have races during that particular, March, I guess we did. We did have the Daytona 200 at the time, because there's 2 Bike Weeks that come into Daytona. And the track would capitalize off of that, creating its own marketplace to drive consumers there on. So we would create our own Bike Week villages, selling vendor space. So literally after that, there was constantly, whether it was through the years, concerts being developed, there's track rentals, there's at Daytona, we actually had the museum that was there, which was considered an attraction that was open 7 days a week. So you had track tours going on. So there's constant activity, outside of just the Daytona 500. Now, Auto Club Speedway, different dynamic. We had 2 races a year. So that was kind of a different mindset for me to shift from, going from Daytona, where you kind of constantly had something going on, to Auto Club Speedway, having a little bit more of a lull. But again, because of the aggressiveness in a positive way from a business standpoint, from the likes of like a Gillian and Fritz and Dave, really saying, how can we continue to leverage this track in other ways outside of just your typical track rentals for the countless commercial shoots and testing of cars, et cetera. And we had an amazing multi-day concert that we had. It was called Epicenter. So it was a 3-day festival with insane headliners out there, partnering up with Danny Wimmer Productions. Danny Wimmer is actually out of Florida. Awesome guy. And he brought in this concert experience. And so it took over the track and got to be part of that, working alongside with him and our staff getting divvied up, even though it was his event, how we were supplementing his efforts. So again, I share these things just from an exposure and being able to see so many different live entertainment and sporting events and all of the nuances from an operational logistics side of seeing how things come to life and being part of that. And I'm a huge fan of that, because it just makes you appreciate, and especially always being in a sales role, I think it's important as a salesperson that you have not only the respect, but the understanding of the other departments that actually have to bring to life what you're selling, from that standpoint, and understanding what it takes for it to come to life. So I'm real vocal about that, and making sure, people have that understanding.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that because I know I I'm cut from the same cloth, similar background, whether it's ticket sales or sponsorship, and just always and a lot of times I was leading projects, and so I would always be like, well, we can do this, we can do this, we can do this, because you have these creative ideas and all these initiatives that sound great, but then you have to work with your operations team that has to actually make all that happen. And many times I'd go head to head with ops. They'd be like, nope, we're not doing it. I'm like, what are you talking about? We need to do this.
Yeah.
We talked about doing something in an end zone, like in the soccer field in the end zone. We're gonna put a field club in the end zone. Nope, we can't do it. The soccer balls be flying in. No, we can do it. The Miami Dolphins do it. There's no reason why the soccer team can't do it. So I totally understand where you're coming from. So then you're there, and then you go into more of a broader scope of entertainment with Merlin and Feld, right?
So Merlin, got the phone call actually from somebody that I had worked with at Daytona National Speedway, and she's been a longtime friend and mentor, by the name of Kim Eisman Salter. And she was actually the general manager of that attraction at Daytona National Speedway and had an immense background in theme parks from her years at SeaWorld, Busch Gardens, and called me up and said, you want to come join me and open up Central Florida's newest theme park? I was like, what? Okay. Obviously, there was a lot more context to that, but
Right.
I quickly understood who Merlin was, and granted, my original focus was opening up Legoland Florida Resort, being able to align myself with one of the most incredible toy brands in the world, Lego. Was absolutely insane to be part of that and really see dirt and how an entire theme park got brought to life from that. So join Merlin. They have an incredible portfolio. They're the second largest attractions group in the world behind Disney. A lot of people don't know the Merlin name, but Legoland Parks is probably their largest channel of business. Madame Tussauds, Sea Life Aquarium, they're the largest aquarium operator in the world. Another little, fact. Legoland Discovery Centers, and then they have they operate and own the London Eye. A lot of people know the London Eye, and then they have a plethora of attractions and theme parks in the UK. Thorpe Park, Alton Towers. These are major theme parks over there in the UK, and then they're global. They're all over the world. So just an insane opportunity to come in. And what I love, and this is a big piece of my selling process, is really looking at a blank slate of paper, and what can you create from that? What makes sense? Giving that brand metrics that are legit. This is not some logo slap, and really had to do that, many times over when you're bringing people out to, a heaping pile of dirt, and say like, promise, there's going to be a theme park here. It's going to be really cool,
Right.
And this is our vision for you. So it was so much fun to be able to bring some unique partnerships on board for that Legoland theme park, and just grow some really neat storylines, to existing attractions, and even creating new attraction experiences around brand partnerships as well. So two of those that was really neat to be part of was Warner Brother Interactive Group. So little did I already know that I was already in the video gaming world. So we created a video game space for kids, and it's like a 70-30 split with Lego video games versus, age appropriate for our target demo age group of video games that could be showcased with all different types of consoles in there. So it was this really cool, WB game zone that we created in our imagination zone. So, those kind of things are awesome to see come to life, and that's what I really enjoy.
Yeah, and I can see when you're talking about painting the picture, I can see how, and we'll get into complexity, I think, in a second, but how that could really benefit you as you're talking to the community and trying to educate them, because a lot of people just can't wrap their mind around esports and gaming right now. So to be able to paint a picture of a pile of dirt becoming a theme park, and talking to partners and being able to do that successfully must have helped you tremendously when you did get involved in the gaming space and with complexity.
Yeah, and and after Merlin, the last 5 years I was with Feld Entertainment, and I truly believe really what I'm having to tackle right now with complexity and esports and that narrative of having these exploratory conversations is no different, quite frankly, than what I was having to do with my sales approach at Feld Entertainment. And a lot of people scratch their heads and they're like, Ashley, how's that possible? You have this insane portfolio at Feld with the most notable IPs in entertainment in the world: Disney, Marvel, Universal, Sesame Street, and then you have like bigger than life Monster Jam, and then the Monster Energy Supercross series. They're like, what's the problem? I was like, okay, let me tell you, when you call up someone, regardless if you think they are spot on from a demo, mom target, and you're like, I've got Disney on Ice, you're going to have access to 7+ million people just here domestically to start talking to. Just people don't, it doesn't just click, right? They don't get it. It's a live entertainment touring show. It just, you have to hold their hand and walk them to the water is the process. Yeah. And you have to start with facts, with, this is why we see the points of connectivity because of who you target. Maybe you have a brand launch, all the basic nuances of anybody in the world of sponsorship is going to tackle to get them interested. But then it is a different formula than a traditional sports team, quite frankly, that have these list of assets that they can sell all day against a building, a property, a parking lot, a team, etc. It's just a very different dynamic. So the creative aspect is 100% important, but it has to make sense. It has to come into fruition, and it has to tie off to those KPIs from that bit. But I had to do that over and over and over again with Feld, regardless of, Jurassic World Live with NBC Universal. People are like, well, don't they just get it? This is freaking awesome. It's Jurassic. And I was like, yeah, but brands still need to understand. So how does this come to life in the marketplace? So there was a real big focus on that consumer journey. Like, what can someone do before, during, and after the actual live event? Is it shopper marketing programs, where this comes to life in retail? Is this a content situation? I mean, so there was all these different mediums that we had to work through. And it was no two programs were alike. It's like anybody in sales, and you probably get this, Tommy. It's like when you have the initial conversations, they're like, well, just send me a deck. I'm like, no. Right. I was like, you just can't send someone. Like, it is such a process anymore, and that's what I enjoy. And I think people respect and appreciate that, of taking the time. And this is not some like rush to the finish line. We're trying to develop something that's long standing and not some flash in the pan opportunity.
Yeah, I think that's great the way you approach that. And you said consumer journey, because that's so important, right? You need to speak to the consumers and spin that narrative and tell them about that. So now we're kind of going from all that background and all that history and all that experience you have into complexity. And you mentioned assets. And I love to talk about the assets, because I still think that's an area where even people that are selling the assets are still trying to determine and figure out where these assets are, how we can leverage them, how we can make the most sense, how we can tell that narrative, and how we can create that consumer journey. So on complexity side, because you have multiple teams, I believe, right? And so you can talk about the multiple teams underneath the org's umbrella, content creators and influencers. Then you have your website. Then you have hard assets that you get. So if you can kind of talk a little bit about that, and I'm assuming this is just a guess, but is that part of the excitement and what drew you from Feld into an organization like Complexity?
Yeah, that's a good question, because a lot of people, the family, I can't speak. I mean, they're incredible. The Feld family, their support, and my SVP, that was my leader. There was 2 guys there at Feld, Jason Bitsoff and Dave Mewey. Those guys are amazing and have their full support with this. And I had a good situation at Feld, but I think I've always had a pulse check on esports. And when I got that phone call last fall, my ears kind of perked up, and I was listening, but I also started laughing. And, once the recruiter shared this experience of this role that they were looking for, and I go, I'm pretty sure you've done your due diligence. I have like zero experience in esports. And he was like, yes, absolutely. It's okay. I go, great. Just wanted to make sure we were on the same page here before you guys pursue this conversation with me, because I definitely see that, a great opportunity. So I was very excited to pursue it, because I looked at it no differently of an incredible space that was booming, especially from a non-endemic standpoint, knowing that non-endemics had jumped in at an early stage. kind of burned out from that piece, but there's just this resurgence, if you will, that's been taking place, and everything that I've been trying to consume, I've just been this sponge, if you will, and learning and observing and reading things and having conversations, and just knew that there was a really neat opportunity. And when it came down to it, and just, for anyone listening, I'm 3 months into this role, right? And it has been an insane time to start a new role. As you can imagine, 3.5 weeks in, pandemic hits, and now we're working from home. But again, it's a testament to the team that I get to work alongside with, just how I've been able to get ramped up so quickly. But when it comes to partnerships, partnerships, there's foundational elements of putting a partnership together. I don't care what you're selling, what industry you're selling in. There are core elements of how you start telling that story and bringing everything to life. You don't have to know every ins and out of every single video game at this point. I definitely look forward to becoming a lot more versed in a lot of these video games. But for me, it's like I remind people, I'm like, I sold Monster Jam. Don't ask me how all the engine parts inside, all come together, but I know what this sport does and what this entertainment property does, from that piece. I can bring in the experts to tell that story. And I feel that that's where the collaborations internally at Complexity, as I've begun this journey, is I've got experts around me. And when I get to start these exploratory conversations with these potential partners, that second, third call, when we start to get into particular nuances, I've got this incredible team, that I get to work alongside with, that I get to bring people in and they can answer, some of those specific aspects. But 3 months in, it is, I don't know how. I tell people, I'm like, I feel like I'm in the wild, wild west right now. But at the same token, when it comes to Complexity, it is a 17 plus year organization. Jason Lake, our CEO, started this company, around the team Counter-Strike, around the game title Counter-Strike 17 plus years ago. In 2017, the Cowboys organization acquired us along with the Goff family, who are based out of Fort Worth. So this incredible acquisition takes place, allowing for this growth. I can only assume, the dreams that Jason had, to be able to continue to grow what he created and to be able to now see this come into fruition, got to be pretty cool for him from that. So, coming in, we're actually are now 1 year, just a couple weeks ago, we celebrated our 1 year anniversary of the opening of our headquarters, which you had referenced at the beginning, the GameStop Performance Center. And it sits right there across the street from the Cowboys headquarters. So we already have this incredible dynamic of this first-class facility that our players get to come in and train and prepare and be the best of the best, not only from their skill sets, but also where we go beyond that from an innovation, health, and wellness aspect, to ensure our players are ready within their mind as well, right? And also from their physical standpoint, to be able to endure the competitiveness that comes along with this. And obviously when we all were traveling, the travels that come from that. So that HQ is just an incredible dynamic. But we have 80 plus.
Can you just walk us through that complex for a minute? Because I actually walked through it, and it's so impressive. And Cameron walked us around, and I met Jason very briefly while I was there. When you come up the stairs, and then you've got your basically your lobby or your lounge. Just kind of try to, because you're so good at painting that picture. So kind of walk us through, because it's a $10 million facility, right? I mean, it's one of the best facilities in the world.
Yeah. Probably might be a couple more dollars on top of that, but yeah, no, it's definitely first class, without a doubt. So this facility, it's a couple of folds of why this came to life. So first and foremost, for the player competition, not only then to house our front office staff, but also for the public. So when you're walking up the stairs, we do have an elevator as well, that dumps you out into this first entry. And it's about the first 1/3 of the entire complex that sits all on one floor, on this second floor of our property. So you come in, and it's this lounge feel with these massive screens up. And then they're this incredible video board that you just have to see it to believe it. But it's this video board that I've never seen before that like twists and turns, and we're able to have amazing branding on there, obviously for our current partners, showcasing games. But the consumers and public can come in there free of charge, go in and be able to sit in a Herman Miller chair, with Herman Miller being one of our partners, which is incredible that we have the best of the best when it comes to gaming chairs. And these fans, no matter how old you are, get to sit in this bank of PCs to be able to have fun on video games. And we also have a iPad gaming bar as well that you can be at. So this is an area where, you know, parents, mom and dad can sit over in these really cool lounge chairs while, you know, the kids play, or if dad's feeling ambitious, which we all know that half the time he is, you know, is over there also partaking in that. So it's a great entry point for us. We're able, that this massive screen board that we have as well, we're able to put up a multitude of different channels at one time as well. But it's also a space where we feature our complexity merchandise. So we're really excited. I don't want to give it away yet because it's going to go public here soon. You'll see it, but we have another merchandise apparel alignment that is going to come out that we're really excited about, that's going to give us better global distribution all around. So, and just a lot more flexibility for us to have some fun with. So that's available to the public.
Listen,
outside.
I absolutely, I love that stuff. Like when I was growing up, I was a Miami Dolphins fan. I had a buddy that was a Dallas Cowboys fan. So I did not like the Dallas Cowboys when I was growing up, but I'll tell you, when I visited and I left, I wanted to buy, 20 things for my kids. The merch, the gear that you guys have there is just outstanding. And the logo's always been the coolest. The logo's awesome. It's just worldwide. It's just instantly recognizable. So really cool that you guys have a new drop coming out in a month or two, because I'll be looking forward to seeing that. But I love that. I'm glad that you brought up the merch area, because I think it's really cool.
Yeah. So that, Cam that you met, Cameron Kelly, our CMO, he's very much a part, along with so many others, Kyle Baptista, who's our COO, another guy that they work closely together alongside with Jason, and that the entire senior leadership team that I got to come into, that whole rebrand of complexity from what it was, the red and black, now to embody the Cowboys look and feel. It's important, that we have that dynamic and that connectivity, but it still sits within its own realm, which I love, so it still has the taste of the Cowboys, and obviously our colors, the beautiful navy and white, but it's still the complexity logo.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So keep us going, because I know there's a pod around to the right, and then there's another area that I want to jump to, but I don't want to take you off where you're going around the facility right now.
Yeah, it's so hard when you don't have the visuals, but there's just so much natural light that comes into this overall space. I think is one of the best things for people to just kind of get in their head, is that you've got this natural light, but then we have multiple rooms where the players are able to go practice. But we were very detailed too with these rooms where they go to practice, to really get them in the mindset as if they were going into competition. So even in the most specific pieces of you're having to step up and go into the room, again, that setting yourself mentally, right? It's before you go out. I played tennis in the past, right? So it's like how, like, you set your mindset, all those little things that you do beforehand, where we tried to replicate, or we didn't try, they did very much so replicate that experience for them. So they step up, they go in these rooms that are just insane. But we have the dynamic to, from a lighting standpoint, so we can adjust the lighting, and while they're practicing, hit like strobe lights and all of these different lighting dynamics that these guys are used to getting pounded with, when they're in the live competition. So again, ensuring from the temperature that's in the room. We're even starting to look into how we control the scent that is within there as well, to help them continue from a mental standpoint, ensure that they are at the top of their game when they start to practice. So all of these elements coming in as if they were in the live show. But another thing, I shared about that, a big focus, because we are players and players first. That's part of our mantra. That health and wellness aspect, from the mind and the body, is very much a massive value and a key pillar when it comes to Complexity's core values. And as a result of that, there's this beautiful hallway that separates the front and the back in some of the different gaming rooms. And in that it's the wellness hallway. At the end of the day, there's actually a sleeping pod that's in there, the compression pants that you can put on as well after these guys have been sitting for hours. But we're really keen on, if these guys had a bad match or, just struggling that day, that they're able to step away, go into this pod, take a moment, 15, 20 minutes and regroup. So we're constantly looking at these different elements, not only within our facility, but across the street. We have Baylor White Scott Hospital there. We have an incredible affiliation with those guys, ensuring that our team has the facilities outside of what the Amazing Cowboys organization has for their health and fitness to stay tip top, not only from where they can go eat, where the players also eat in the Cowboys at the training table, to that exercise piece. So you continue to go down this amazing wellness hallway, and then it dumps out into the Miller Lite Players Lounge. So the Miller Lite Players Lounge, it's a couple of different dynamics of how this area is utilized. So it's surrounded by some really beautiful conference room, offices, and more training rooms as well. So in this Miller Lite Players Lounge, it's an area for our employees to come together, but it's really a break point when we do have our players or our content creators in our house, if you will, that they can come, relax, kick back, integrate with us. But we've had plenty of pro athletes come through those doors, and I laugh. Just in a couple of weeks I was there in the office, the handful of pro athletes, both from the NFL side and some top draft picks that were for the NBA, that were just hanging out playing some video games in there, but it's awesome that the word has spread and continues to spread about our HQ. So the last piece is hitting on, our HQ is, again, building on all the resources for our players. We have a cognitive lab as well for the players. Again, these are additional resources to continue to prep them with their mind and their skills, with their hands, and doing all of these different exercises in there with technology elements, just to continue to refine themselves to prep as well. So we really tried to make sure that they had all of the resources that they need. These guys, obviously I was not around at the development of this, but there was not a detail missed, is what I can say. And you can think that back to, these guys that have been with Complexity for, many years alongside Jason Lake, that understand the industry, but value what is needed for the players, and people understanding that, the players are what drives our business. They need to win. They need to be good at what they do. So let's ensure that they're given the best.
Yeah, man, that truly is a best-in-class facility. I wish everybody could see it, because it really is. Just walking through there and then getting the tour and seeing everything that you're talking about right now was unreal. It was one of those areas where I was like, wait a second. Again, I've been following esports and gaming for over 4 years now, and when I saw this, I was like, wait a second. They're not holding back at all. They're putting as much time, money, resources, everything into Complexity as they are the Dallas Cowboys. And when you think of the Dallas Cowboys, probably one of the top 5 brands in the world when you talk about, professional sports teams. So that's amazing. And I know that's an area where you like I said, Miller Lite Lounge. So you do some of your sponsorship, you do have an asset there. What I wanted to do is, because you talk about the competitive side, is actually talk about a little bit on the content side, because I thought that I saw recently, you guys are doing some really cool stuff on the content side, I think, with Electra. And if you can, because this is, again, going back to the brand and tying everything in. I saw a 2.5 minute piece that was just released recently on her. If you can kind of talk about that, because I thought that was unbelievable.
Yeah, just real quick for anybody listening, if you actually want to go see the headquarters, we released a virtual tour of the headquarters on our anniversary. So if you go to our Twitter account, Complexity Gaming, there's actually a virtual tour that walks you through all of the areas of our HQ. So encourage you to go check it out so you can actually see it for yourself, for sure.
Definitely should do that.
From that. So another piece that really attracted me, and to your point of, the likes of someone like Electra and the content creators, with Complexity Gaming is not only we have this incredible roster of competitive players, across, multiple gaming titles. So from a competitive and content creative standpoint, we have our hands in about 12 titles right now. Counter-Strike is obviously one of our top tiered focus. We have the #1 guild in the world with World of Warcraft. Wow. I always get that's like a tongue twister, but we have a great diverse gaming title bit, as well as Fortnite, right? And then Valorant as well. And games like Valorant and Fortnite, we're able to continue to create the second roster of these streamers and influencers, giving even more dynamic into the overall Complexity umbrella of what we can offer to a partnership and how that partnership can come to life through these content creators. So Cam has had a huge role, our CMO, in creating this channel of business for us. And I love the fact that we continue to have a diverse portfolio within that by signing females as well, because I think especially in this day and age, especially within esports, having even a larger female contingency and how that's brought to life. And so we've been really fortunate. We had Maddie already on board, and we just signed Electra. And what I love about our approach, and really, when Cam and the team is looking at, who we sign on, it may not be the person that has like a gazillion followers, but who are they down to the person? Like, what are the different value attributes that they're going to bring to Complexity to not only be an amazing representation of our brand, but then how that can parlay for new partnership opportunities that make sense and that are authentic, right? I love everybody's using the buzzword authentic, but without a doubt. But I know even more so within esports, it is very, very true that you better be on spot on how authentic you're delivering content these days, because gamers don't mess around. Fans of these games, like, they can see straight through it if it's not authentic. So I think that's a huge piece. So, we try to be creative when we go out with our content creators. If you get on and see our Electra announcement, Electra is actually also an artist. She paints. She's also a soccer player as well. I mean, this girl is awesome. And her name's actually Ashley as well. So she's amazing. Just equally as the others on the roster. But we did this really cool piece to announce her, right? Instead of just like showing a picture or what have you, she actually did this whole narrative of why she chose Complexity. And I think even more so speaks volumes to the pillars of Complexity and what we represent, and that she understood that and got on board with it versus joining other organizations. And she created, while she was doing this narrative, she was painting on this blank canvas, going back to that blank sheet of paper, right? The correlation. But she creates this beautiful painting and is actually painting the Complexity logo. And that's how she made her announcement. And I just love the creative approaches that we take from content. The other big thing that's another point of differentiation with Complexity when it comes to content creation is this insane series that's been going on now for 2 seasons. We're actually in the 2nd season right now of Through the Smoke. So Through the Smoke is on YouTube. If you guys see this 2nd season, especially, 3 episodes have launched right now. There's a 4th episode about to drop here in the next couple weeks. The production value of this, it's unbelievable. And that's all done in-house with the talent that we have under our roof. And it is just amazing. So I encourage anybody to go check that out. And what I love about that is that's just an example of how we're giving access to fans and, to see that peek behind the curtain. But for someone like me in my position, it's a great tool and a resource for those folks that don't understand gaming or all the different dynamics or these perceptions that they have, to be able to see really truly the emotions and everything that go into it, and then experiencing that live moment when they're winning and or losing. So what they've created with that Through the Smoke series is just another avenue for us to continue to tell the Complexity story as we look to continue to grow, not only in the endemic space with partnerships, but most definitely with non-endemics.
Is that similar to, because I love that you brought that up, because I was going to ask you that next, so that was great. But is that similar to maybe like a Hard Knocks, or is it like a 30 for 30 kind of thing where it's really?
Yeah, 30 for 30. I think 30 for 30 is probably a really good comparison from that standpoint. So yeah, I mean, it's just following the guys on the Counter-Strike team. Jason Lake is within that as well. I mean, he has such a passion for that team, and I mean, for the organization overall, but what he exudes and how that comes out as well within the series, I think can give someone a pretty quick taste into, what complexity is from a culture standpoint, and really the passion that surrounds that. So yeah, it's definitely more of a 30 on 30 context of following interviews with the players, showing them going through, the woes of traveling and, and all of that. So the filter's definitely off when you're watching through the smoke.
That's awesome. And what are the channels? So is that all over the top? Is it OTT, where it's through your website and through YouTube and Twitch?
Yep,
or
yep.
Is it also, will there be any plans to go linear and sign some type of, agreement for that?
It's absolutely a goal for us to figure that out and to go linear with this type of production. I think anybody can see that it has the legs to be able to do that, and not just with our Counter-Strike team. I think there's many other aspects of how that can continue to grow. But, definitely on the list of something that we'd like to accomplish as an organization. But yeah, you can definitely go through our website, go through YouTube, but both series are all out there. Both seasons are both out there for this series Through the Smoke.
Yeah, I just looked at the time. I can't even believe it. Like, I've got 100 other things I want to ask you, but I know typically we like to keep these to an hour, and I know you can't stay with me all day. So if there's two other things that at least you could to talk about a little bit before we finish up, and I would just ask you, because this is what your role is on the sponsorship side and the partnership side, right?
Yes.
Maybe walk us through something that you're either working on or have closed already. It's a really cool deal that you guys have done. And then anything that you guys have coming up in the next, by the end of the year, that you think is really newsworthy that you're allowed to share. Because I know some things, people aren't allowed to talk about.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Being 3 months in, I think a couple of things I can share, that even with the challenges that we've had as a country with this pandemic and with businesses, traditional sports being greatly affected through this, it definitely has allowed for another shot in the arm, if you will, of esports to a lot of folks to have more exposure into it. And I think what's helped too is seeing the likes of, NBA 2K and the Madden situations coming to life through major networks. What NASCAR did with iRacing and leveraging their media TV contracts, and Supercross, they're at Feld Entertainment. Like, kudos to my peeps back at Feld, like what they've done to leverage the Supercross video games and having that parlay into them looking to finish the season. So I think there was this additional exposure that really helped me to be able to create a pretty healthy pipeline of conversations just within the last, I'd call it 2 months, really starting to look at new opportunities for the rest of this year. I will say that we have a couple that we look forward to announcing here soon. I wish I could talk about them, but I can't. But I will share the one thing that, I'm really focused on, and also aligning with Cam, our CMO, and our marketing team, just to continue to look at partnerships that continue to elevate complexity. What are certain categories as well that are firsts within esports? I think we really love to dig into that. And, fingers crossed, we're going to be able to have a couple of those firsts that we're looking forward to from a partnership standpoint. And that's what we're really focused on. What are these meaningful partnerships that not only benefit our players and our content creators, but how does this really come to life for that brand in a unique way who has never been within esports before? So truly talking about non-endemics, that we're focused on right now, outside of the obvious endemics as well, that we want to continue to build and grow within. So I know I didn't get to answer anything specific, but I think us as an organization, where we're at right now, considering these times, we're going to have some fun announcements here coming up in 2020. And then moving on from that, just with the dynamic of how the business continues to grow, and these new conversations that we're able to have because of people kind of starting to scratch their heads a little bit more and saying, okay, what does it mean to get into esports? What is this really? Yeah, I know there's a ton of eyeballs out there, but okay, so let's really like talk facts. Like, what does it really mean for me to get into this industry, align with a first-class organization like Complexity, give me some success within esports, and to continue to grow from there.
Yeah, I think it's super exciting, right? It's so much fun. I love having these conversations because the space is just amazing. And I think for you, like right now, and as I look at just some of the ones that have happened recently, even in the luxury category, right? When you look at Louis Vuitton and you look at Lamborghini and you look at some of these organizations or some of these brands that are getting involved, you're like, wait a second. And then to see how they're doing it is super, super cool. Mm-hmm. So it's got to be very exciting for you. I'm very happy that you've made the jump because you have a tremendous amount of experience, obviously, and knowledge, and you've learned a ton. I mean, in 3 months, I mean, the way you're talking about just the titles and understanding the landscape. I think one of the things that I've been having conversations with a number of people like yourself, that when you're coming from, okay, I've got a tremendous amount of experience and I can bring a lot to the space, but I need to learn the space. To me, one of the things that people need to do is obviously surround yourself with experts and read and, just learn as much as you can, but also play. I'm terrible, but I sit down and I play with my kids. And when you play, all of a sudden, it's like when we were talking about travel, you learn through osmosis. So I tell people that, especially if they're thinking about the industry, it's a good way to kind of learn the language. I haven't brought this up in a while, but my kids they're hardly ever talking on their phone. They're hardly ever texting. They don't use email. I mean, email is like, well, forget about that, right? And so all these traditional ways that we've kind of been doing business over the last 10, 15, 20 years, all the way they communicate is actually right now, my kids, is through their Xbox. So if you're talking like, millennials, Gen Zs, if you're talking about these people, they're communicating through the games themselves.
Yep.
That's their number one form of communication. So we need to learn how to speak to them and to bridge the gap between people that have never done that and people that are doing that constantly.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, and we're fortunate. We're one of 5 teams that's sponsored by Twitch. And because of that dynamic, when it comes to partnerships, we're really able to your point, like bridging that gap in unique ways of, that communication to the gaming world through that medium. But I'm surprised you didn't kick off the conversation being like, Ashley, do you game? That was one of the, when I was going through the interview process with Jason and Cam and Kyle, I go, listen, I still have my original NES. So Mario Brothers, all day long. I have the Wii. I will whip anybody in Mario Kart any day of the week from on the Wii. Right. I go, I have a PS4 and a lot of these Lego video games I would get through the years. I go, and that's where it kind of started to get a little complicated on some things. But yeah, no, I tell them, I was like, I absolutely enjoy video games. I still, like, in my adult life, the amount of fun times I've had, playing video games. But this is a whole new space when it comes to PC gaming, with Counter-Strike and World of Warcraft. And those are the areas, like I said beforehand, I look forward to becoming a whole lot more versed in those games because I am just naturally a very competitive individual. So I definitely am looking forward to getting my hand a little bit deeper into that world and understanding it very much so, because it is very important to understand it.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because that's typically one of my fallbacks, and we just didn't get to it. I almost always ask that question. So how did you get involved in gaming? So I love that you brought it up at the end because it's a great way to tie everything up. Well, Ashley, thank you so much. It's been incredible.
Yeah.
Thank you. I look forward to seeing you soon.
Definitely enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
All right. Stay safe.
All right. Take care.
Right. Ciao.
Bye.
I'd like to thank Ashley for sharing her time, experience, and knowledge with us today. She has such a strong, diverse, and dynamic background across sports, entertainment, and esports. It's really impressive. And I got a real sense for how much she enjoys her work and what an amazing teammate she must be. It doesn't matter where she is. You can listen to Ashley again now, and you can also find timestamped segments of the show, links to her social pages, and more information about her company, projects, and media in the show notes. If you enjoyed our discussion, please let us know. Continue the conversation with me across all social platforms to become a part of the Ultimate Gamer community today by subscribing at ultimategamer.com. We release a new show every day of the week, Monday through Friday, so be the first to join us for some outstanding upcoming guests and or dive back into the library of previous Level Up pods to hear from some of the most brilliant minds in the space. Experts like co-owner and CCO of AOE Creative, Markel Lee, Chief Commercial Officer of G-Loot, Frank Erickson, and VP of Gaming at the Switch, Charles Conroy, just to name a few. You can find all of these episodes and more on the Ultimate Gamer website, on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your pods. And finally, please like, rate, and review the show. It helps us reach the gaming community to spread the word and share the wisdom of our guests, as well as some of the most thought-provoking stories in the industry. Shout out, as always, to the Ultimate Gamer. I look forward to being with you on the next Level Up Podcast.